Hi, this is a video of how I take copper etched plates and turn them into a print, as you can see behind me. Please enjoy. You know, my intention for doing this live is because I'm working on a series of etchings right now. And these are the etchings that I'm working on. And I'm working, I'm doing that using an Intaglio plate. So here's the Intaglio plate that I'm going to be printing from. And so a lot of people are confused about Intaglio printing. Some people actually think it comes from like a Xerox machine, but it really doesn't. It comes from, it comes from a copper etching that you etch into, and then you, and I'll show you the whole process from start to finish of how I get the print. And that's what we're trying to do here today. Okay, so the first thing you need is you need clean hands. My hands are really clean. That's one of the problems that people have and students have, because you have to keep reminding them to keep their hands clean. And I'll show you why that's important. You don't want your prints, your hand prints, to be on there. You're working with ink, so it's a little bit of a messy process. Okay, so the way I work with the paper is, what I'll do is, the size that I need right now is about a 5x7 piece of paper. What I'll do is I won't cut it using scissors or anything. I want to use a straight edge when I'm going to draw a line down it. And then I'm going to draw a line down the second or third line marks that I made. And then this line is the line that I'm going to use to tear the paper. And I'm printing on the other side of this paper. Again, I have some newsprint down to make sure it's clean. And I just pull. And what that does is it makes a kind of a ridge you can see on the side that I pulled. But on the side that I cut, it's a nice smooth edge. And so that's really important. These like little details just in regards to your paper is important when it comes to printing. And so what I'll do at this point is I have a basin of water here, and I'll just throw those in there. The minimum amount of time, they say, is generally around 20 minutes. Okay, that you want your paper to sit. I have my little station here for working with the ink. And what I'm going to do here is, I already have some things ready here, but really what I have here is Vaseline. So I have Vaseline here. That'll extend the ink. That'll make the ink go longer, stay wetter longer. But you also have to be careful not putting too much of that in, because then it'll take the ink a long time to dry. The other thing is I have Easy Wipe. This I get from Graphic Materials, and it's called Easy Wipe. And it gets pretty cruddy in there, but this allows me ease to wipe off the ink from the plate. The next thing that I have here is some oil that I'll use. So this is pretty good grade oil. It's a French oil that I'm using. And then I might use some carbon, whatever. It's stuff when you go to printmaking, you get it, and it basically will dry out the ink. But before I ever start any of that, what I'm going to use is this art guard. So this art guard is something you put on your hands, and I'm going to put this on this part of my hand right there. That's really important, and I'll show you why later. And then I'll rub that in real good, rub my hands in real good. And before I start with my ink, I'm going to put on some gloves. At least it creates one barrier from getting your hands dirty. So my little joke at school was to do that, have people freak out. So anyway, so I have my gloves. What I'm going to use, now you can get this ink in all kinds of things. You can get them in cans, but I like getting it in the tube. And the reason I like it in the tube is because it actually stays fresh in the tube, where in the can you're going to get a skin on top of it, which is going to be a problem. Not so much for etching, but definitely for woodblock printing, it's a problem. And so I already have some ready, but I'll show you. Okay, so what you want to do whenever you're mixing your ink is you want to mix it, you want to tap it over 20 times. That's your minimum amount of count. So it'd be like 1, 2, 3, you know, and you do that 20 times. But before I do that, I want to see what, I'm going to warm it up a little bit. So it's just back and forth, back and forth. I have a scraper where I can scrape off the end, recollect it. I'm using a glass palette here. So what you're trying to find out is you're trying to find out the viscosity of it and the tack of your ink. So one way of doing is you take your spatula here and you bring it up, and you want about a 3-inch stream before it breaks. And it's not bad, but it's a little oily. I can see that it's still going. You know, it's a little hotter today, so the ink's going to be different today than, say, it would be on a cold day. So what I'm going to do here is to relieve some of that. I always like to mix a little bit and see how the ink deals with that. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to feed it out like this, carbonate. So what I'm using is magnesium carbonate. I got this from Daniel Smith many years ago. So it lasts forever. I'll dust some of this on top of that. And what this does is it'll take that really runniness away from your ink. And then I mix it in. Okay, so I'm going to blow off the stuff I didn't use. I'm going to collect it again. Bring it nice and close in here and see. See, it's still, but it broke at about an inch, still kind of streaming a little bit. So it is a little tacky and a little runny right now. And, you know, on purpose, I'm going to make it a little bit more runnier just so that you can see what's going on and why we use these different inks. And it's really your preference eventually. It becomes your preference. But I'm just going to take a little bit of oil. I'm just going to put like a little drop on it because I already know it's kind of runny. Mix it real good. That's it. Do that tack test again. You see it? A little broader. So it significantly changes the ink. So again, I think it's a little bit too runny. So I'm going to put a little bit more of this on there. Just a little bit more, not a lot. And, you know, essentially what it does is it absorbs the ink and doesn't change the quality of the ink. The ink opacity isn't compromised. For a while, I can feel it. It's very tacky. See? So I don't want that tack. So I'm going to add some Vaseline to it. that's going to totally remove that tack. So I got the viscosity that I wanted. Now I want to work with the tack. Makes the ink a little shinier too. And that's really good. That feels really good. You know, it's experience. You know how much to put in by doing this through experience. I know how much ink I have here. I know how much of this I want to put in. I think maybe volume-wise, it might be a little less than a quarter. It's about the most you want to do. And now I want to use this easy wipe. I'm a little generous with the easy wipe. And the reason I'm generous with it is because I've had cases where just rubbing that ink off the plate's a real pain. And this easy wipe doesn't compromise the ink, doesn't compromise that much the quality of the ink. It's not perceptible unless you use a ton of it. And now it feels very smooth. It's just smooth. You can see as I run this along it, it's just smooth. And that's very nice. That's a very nice ink feel. Now, this ink is old ink. It's to the condition I wanted, and I printed yesterday. So in order to preserve it so I don't get any skin on it, I use this anti-skin. And I just, when I'm done and I have excess ink, I just spray this on it, and then that preserves the ink. I don't waste the ink, which is expensive, right? And it's funny because, you know, I've done this for so long that I've definitely learned that if I skip steps, I'm going to have a problem. If you want to really kind of take it to a professional level, that's what I'm doing. Okay, so now I could put this ink on my plate. In the mail, I get tons of these little things. Like here's an art card. So I collect all the cards that I get in the mail. And so these come in the mail. Boom, I'm gonna go with, I'm gonna, use this. So basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the ink on the plate, and then I'm gonna rub it. I'm gonna rub the ink along the plate in all four directions. So I make sure that I get that ink inside the grooves of the plate. So all four directions. All right, so that's a pretty full plate of ink right now. So you can see what I'm doing here. Has a lot of ink on the edge. So I have handy dandy toilet paper, and I'll clean up those edges before I do anything. Just rub that ink off of there. Okay, so I have another station here. My next station is my cleaning station of the plate. So this is that stuff you get for, I don't know, your cabinets, so things don't move around. And so I'm just going to put that on there. Another thing you get in the mail are yellow pages. So these work great. So I'm going to tear a yellow page off, and then I'm going to stamp. I call this stamping. It may be more than you really need to do, but I like to get that ink so it's really, really even. Right now you can see there's a lot of streaks on that plate. So what I want to do is I want to just stamp and get it so it's nice and even over the whole plate. Now you can see that it's really distributed pretty evenly, the ink on this plate. So now I'm going to use tarlatan. It's kind of like a cheesecloth, a little bit harder. And I'll just make this into a ball. And then I'll rub this in one direction on the plate. And then I'll find another clean area And I use this till this thing gets just black. And then I'll rotate in the other direction. And just get kind of this excess ink off the top. Really, this is just to get that really heavy excess off. You can start to see the image come through. Okay, so you can start to see the images coming through. That's not where I want to be though. So now I'll take the paper that I have and I will start to run this over the plate. And this I like to rub lightly over the image. Not hard, very light. It's just a light touch. It's like petting, you know, like a bird or something. You don't want to press real hard. So you're just really nice and gentle. You can see how it's coming through. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pat the plate. So I'm going to take that part of my hand and I'm just going to start patting the plate. And I first use it with the gloves on because that kind of gets it pretty good. And then why we're so dirty as printmakers, why our thing is so dirty is because we pat and then we rub. And then we pat and we rub. So we go through these. I don't go through a lot of them because you can see it's been worn a lot. But that's basically, if you see printmakers and they have so much of that ink on them, that's why. Is because what they're doing is they're printing. And they're professional, there are professionals. I think it's Tamarind is a place where there are professional printers. In the world of printmaking, you have the artist that draws the image. You have master engravers who engrave and etch into the plate. And then you have master printers that print. And some people spend their whole lifetime just learning how to do those separate things, not all in one, but each individually, and they make their living off of doing that. Us home people, we have to learn how to do it all. So essentially that's what I'm doing here, is I'm patting it off. And I know it's hard to see, but you can see like a little ink areas here in this negative space. So that's what I'm doing, is I'm just patting that off. Once I'm done with that and I feel pretty good about that, I don't want to pat really the main areas because this will take too much off of it. And now you're taking the ink out of the grooves. So now I remove my hand, and this is the reason I put that stuff on. So it's easy to take it off, easy to wash that ink off your hands. And now I'm going to use my palm. I'm going to use my palm to pat. So I'm just looking real closely and just getting that detail edges so that you get really nice sharp edges. And this is another reason is for people to understand why these prints are so valuable, because they are touched by the artist. And we're really trying to get some quality here. In bonsai, you have dead wood and you have live vein. And I want that dead wood to show up white. So I'm just really easy with my finger, taking that excess off. Okay, trying to get a nice even distribution on the surface, as clean as I possibly can. And I'll run my thumb along the edge just to make sure I get that off. And you can see that I get a little bit, right? That'll show up on the print. Now it's gone. You got a nice white edge. Okay, so that my plate is ready to print. So you can see the ink inside the grooves, right? Okay, So next station. This is my press. Calls Charles Brand Machinery Inc. Made in Brooklyn. When I was going to art school, my teacher said somebody had a press that they wanted to sell, and so I went over there and they had this fantastic press. So there's a little cost to them, but boy, you know, having a really nice press, and it's not that big. You know, it's like has a 16-inch bed with maybe 30 inches long, and so doing smaller prints like this is not a problem. So I've already marked the bed, so I'm going to place this down. This is marked for the paper. I know I want to be at this inch line away from it when I put it down. So I make sure it's nice and square. And just to be safe, I'm going to grab a little toilet paper here, and I'm going to go around carefully at the edge just to make sure I have no marks on the bed at all, because that will press into the paper. My hand's really good. And because I put that stuff on my hands, it comes off pretty easy. Rag. Okay, so I have some towels. I'll lay the towel out, and I'll take the paper out. And when I take the paper out, I'm going to grab, now some people like to make little pieces of paper that you can grab. I just make sure my hands are clean, but I just barely grab the edge. Hopefully you can see that. And I just let that drop off. I'll put it on the bed. I'll put my towel on top of it. And I don't know the word for this. I don't know, branching or something, I don't know. But I'll just take 3 cross rolls over that paper. And now the paper is in a good dampness to take the heat. I'm going to take the paper. Now, because I drew a line on the paper, I know that I can line that up to the center. Also, this paper here has a watermark on it, and actually that makes it a little more valuable, even though it's in the same series. So I'm just gonna line that up here and make sure it's nice and straight here. So I line that line up. So there you go. I have some newsprint I put over it. That's to protect the blankets. When it comes to Intaglio etching, I don't need the thick pad. You can see I have a thick pad that I use for when I'm doing wood blocks, so that I get a real nice embossing. But I don't need that for etchings. You get embossing, but it's really imperceptible. So I have the nice blankets on here, and I'm just going to run it through. We'll see what we get. Here's the surprise. So I'm just going to run it through. I already preset this, so I don't need to go through that. And you can see that the print, can you see that? That the print is embossed over that plate. So that's where you know you have a good pressing into your paper. You've got to get that paper into those grooves. So I'm going to pull it out. Okay, not bad. There's my print. That's how that works. So what I'm going to do at this point is I have all my prints up here. And I'll just tack it onto the wall. And so what I'm doing here is I'm stepping back and I'm looking at each of the prints just to make sure that they're all about as close as they possibly can be. The last thing you want to do is when you're making a series, is the last thing you really want to do when you're doing this series is have it so that one print is different than another, because when people are buying these prints and you're saying it's 20 of 100, that means they're all exactly the same. That's what a series is. If you want to do mono prints, like if I want to go back and do watercolor over those, then it would be a mono print. If I was painting on plexiglass and doing that, that's a monotype. So that's how you know the difference between what's what. Also, when you're developing your plates, you can use AP, which is an artist proof. So these are the series. I'm gonna probably keep, there's gonna be 10 out of this. 2 of them, or how many beyond 10 I have, I'm going to turn into monoprints. I'm gonna go back and watercolor over those. So that's pretty much it. Well, thank you for watching this video. Below you can comment, as well as in the description I'm going to put details in regards to the material that I used and a link that you can go to see the full unedited version of the live broadcast of this video. I'd like to thank our Bear Shao Davis at patreon.com for helping me produce this video, as well as if you'd like to become a patron, feel free to go to patreon.com Ron Reekers. You'll also find me on social media under Ron Reekers and Facebook Reekers Art. So again, thank you very much.